Hey guys, this is Ari Witten, and welcome back to the Energy Blueprint podcast. Today I have with me Andrea Duffy, who is a representative of Sunlighten Saunas, and she's here to talk all about the science around the health benefits of sauna use and specifically infrared saunas. So what does the science actually say about the benefits of these kind of saunas? There's all kinds of hype and lots of different claims around this, but I wanted to have a conversation really grounded in science around what the science actually says about the real benefits of these kind of saunas. Now, I personally have a Sunlighten sauna myself. I'm a huge advocate of sauna use in general, whether Sunlighten or any brand, but certainly there are big differences in the quality of different brands. But there is a mountain of science showing profound, absolutely amazing health benefits from sauna use. Some of it is actually mind-blowing, and we'll get into that in this interview. But Andrea is an expert on this, and she has studied the science around the health effects of infrared saunas very, very intensively. And it's absolutely a fascinating interview, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So welcome, Andrea. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Get more broad for a second. And you mentioned a second ago that there's a difference between kind of convection heating style saunas and an infrared sauna. So for people who are unfamiliar with that, what are the differences between these two styles of saunas?
So the convectional heat is going to be something similar to what you're used to, that old hot rock sauna where you might even pour the water on it, and it operates anywhere from 220 degrees to 280 degrees, depending on the style of the heater that's placed inside of that sauna. When you're heating the air, then obviously your skin's getting hot first, where in a far infrared unit, that sauna is going to range from anywhere from 120 degrees to 150 degrees. But what they do that's very different, where in that convectional heat sauna, you're not controlling the surface of that temperature. You're just allowing it to get hotter and hotter and hotter, the better. You're not able to have far infrared in that environment because it's just too hot. Where in an infrared sauna, if it's done right, it should be controlled by the surface temperature. So it has nothing to do with the ambient temperature at all. Sometimes people get really wrapped up in that ambient temperature because they're thinking, I'm in a sauna and I should be on fire while I'm in here. That's true of some technologies, and it is still warm because you're in a box with heater. So it still can get up to 150 degrees, which is much hotter than you. So you're still going to sweat a lot, but you're getting that penetrating heat at a sweet spot that your body absorbs. So that sweet spot is at 9.4 microns, where it's compatible with the human body. And really, the reason that number is so important, because that's how much you're going to get to absorption. So the more you get, the faster you're going to raise your core temperature, and the more vibration that you're going to receive to the body, which is going to disrupt hard toxins, which is in addition to raising the body's core temperature.
Now, explain that a little deeper, this whole 9.4 microns.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the significance of that? So just I know you just kind of said a little bit, but explain a little bit deeper around that. So why does it matter what specific frequency the heaters are emitting?
So the frequency, it's really important because at 9.4 microns, so for instance, we'll say that you could see the wavelengths coming off of the heaters, just for conversation's sake. If you had the black body, the human body in front of the heater, at 9.4 micron, you would see a straight line of absorption. So if the surface of the temperature of the heater was heating and cooling, the wavelength would look more like a bell curve. You'd be receiving and not receiving, receiving and not receiving, because you want it to be at 9.4 body, because that's what's perfect to the black body, the human body. So that number is really important because everybody has far infrared. So like you and I have far infrared. A blanket can provide far infrared, but it's just a very low amount, not enough to cause a therapy. Where to receive far infrared, it's going to... And
actually, let me interrupt you real quick, because you said you have far infrared. I just want you to clarify what you mean by that, because that will go over the head of a lot of people who are not familiar with that concept. But
sure.
So just explain a bit what you mean by that.
So far infrared is a penetrating heat. So when I say, like you and I have far infrared. If you were cold and you were, say you were on Naked and Afraid or something crazy like that, you would cuddle up just to receive body heat, that penetrating heat, which is going to in turn keep you warm, even though from where you're touching, but it also help with raising your core temperature throughout. But obviously that wouldn't be enough to cause you to sweat. And also it wouldn't raise your core temperature 3 degrees. So when you're inside of the sauna versus like that low level. So, and I guess the best way to explain it is if you had low levels of far infrared and a lot of convection, you wouldn't be creating that vibration. So when you're looking at getting a high level of far infrared, you're looking to have a vibration to the deep cellular level, which is causing that disruption, but it also is raising the body's core temperature. So at 9.4 microns, that's where it's going to be the most compatible with you, where you're going to receive it at a complete wavelength that's compatible with the human body. And when you're in a far infrared, specifically, some of the brands out there have testing, you can get at 95% absorption, 99% absorption. And that's where the more you get, the better the therapy, really.
Okay. So on this point, I believe this is relevant to the idea of, some of these cheaper brands of far infrared saunas versus some of the more expensive brands. And so it's possible to get like a cheap fabric box with far infrared emitters, for a couple $100. And it's also possible to spend many thousands of dollars on, a nice wooden sauna. Now, are there differences when it comes to this frequency that's being emitted by the heaters and the bioavailability of that, or the biocompatibility? Are there differences between some of these cheaper sauna units and the more expensive ones when it comes to that, the heater quality itself?
Absolutely. So the biggest difference is that they are measuring the ambient temperature of the cabinet and not the surface temperature. So Wayne's law says the larger the surface temperature, the more controlled the temperature, the better the wavelength is going to be, the more controlled the wavelength is going to be. So when you're, for instance, in a tent and you have a space heater in there with you, you're receiving a lot of convection and it feels very different. So if you even jumped from one unit to the other, you'd be able to tell, okay, well, even though I didn't feel as hot in this one, I was sweating a lot more. And if you took your temperature, you would see, okay, I raised my temperature 3 degrees. And then you might go into a low level unit or a tent sauna that has a space heater, and you're in there for 10 minutes and you're like, I'm so much hotter than I was in that other one. But oddly enough, you get out, you take your temperature, you've barely raised your core temperature at all, and the sweat feels different. The type of sweat is really watery in that one, where if you're getting enough to be a therapy, it's very oily, very meniscus, it smells differently. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there's a few different things in there that I think are worth piecing out. One is a person's subjective sense of how hot it is in a given type of sauna. Another one is how much you sweat in a given type of sauna. And those two things don't necessarily correlate that well. And then core body temperature, which also doesn't seem to correlate. And then I guess a fourth thing would be the type of sweat that's being produced by your body. So I guess to phrase this another way, it's possible to go into a type of sauna, feel really hot and feel really uncomfortable, but not necessarily sweat a lot and not necessarily produce that viscous, more oily sweat. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. Where you're in a traditional type sauna, a hot room, you're really, it's going to be a lot more water. Just to, kind of keep it simple, you're receiving that heat is causing you to sweat from the surface area, which is a water-based sweat. And the difference is you're getting 97% water with a traditional sauna. Maybe 3% of that sweat is toxins. With an infrared therapy sauna, you're receiving 80% of it is water and 20% is toxins. And you can very much tell the difference. It smells different. It feels different.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what is actually happening that is causing that difference? So the traditional heaters heating mainly the skin, and so it's affecting that. But how does an infrared sauna actually release more toxins from the body?
And the way that that works is that because it is the deep penetrating heat, it's penetrating to the deepest level, the cellular level, and it's causing a vibration to the deep cellular level, which is disrupting toxins that are stored. And because you're raising your total body's core temperature, you're sweating from the inside out. So it takes a little bit longer to get started, but once you get started, it's just buckets. I mean, you're sweating a ton, and then it was actually Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt who did the sweat analysis study through the Klinghardt Academy.
Where he found those percentages.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say it's penetrating down deep to the cellular level,
Mm-hmm.
are just to play a little devil's advocate here, our skin technically has cells, so you could say
yes.
Convection is also like affecting the on the cellular level at the skin. But is there a difference as how deep the penetration goes of that heat into the body from traditional versus infrared, and how deep does infrared go into the body?
So the depth of infrared is going to be different for everybody because people are different sizes. And the best way and it's invisible. So there's not really a measuring tool that's going to tell you exactly how deep it's going into your body, but the only way that we're able to measure it is by measuring the wavelength to which the far infrared is being delivered, knowing that it's compatible with the human body. And doing the sweat analysis that shows the environmental toxins, the pollutants, the heavy metals, and those types of things. That's what has been done. But talking about the surface of the skin, there's a lot of studies that go along with using different wavelengths that are actually working with the surface of the skin will help with regenerating cells faster, and that's specific to near infrared. And far infrared is 9.4 microns, but near infrared is best absorbed by the human body at 880 nanometers. So really with the science, when you look at it, one can't be the other. It's going to be delivered at that wavelength, and near infrared's done a different wavelength. Also, near infrared is best absorbed at very low surface temperatures. So the surface of a far infrared heater would be too hot for it to be able to create near infrared. Because it has to stay very, very low, below 110 degrees, which at that point you wouldn't be receiving far infrared.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's two different things.
Okay, so let's go deeper into that. So step back for a minute and I guess do a bit more general explanation of far versus near infrared for people versus mid infrared, I guess you could also add, for people who have never heard of these things before. Sure.
So the far infrared is the longest wavelength of infrared heat. It provides the deepest penetration, what we were talking about with all of the health benefits associated with it. In addition to raising the total body's core temperature, you're getting that deep penetration, which is causing your body to work very hard to cool itself. So you're going to be burning a lot of calories while you're in there, as well as increasing your heart rate, which is really good for heart health. So somebody who, I always like to talk about far infrared and I think this helps. If you're trying to use heat therapy, or when you do use heat therapy, you are able to increase your endurance like anything else, because your body's getting used to operating at a warmer level. So somebody beginning a workout or somebody who's been working out for a long time and they're looking to increase their endurance, using far infrared technology, which is going to raise your core temperature, that longest wavelength, is going to allow you to increase your endurance around 40%. So that's across the board for anybody, and that's over the course of 5 weeks. Where mid-infrared's a little bit different. So far, the deepest core temperature, mid-infrared hones in on the soft tissue of the body. That's at 6.7 microns. So it's also delivered at microns. Even though it's a shorter wavelength than far infrared, it's actually, the surface of that heater is a little bit warmer. So you can feel mid-infrared more than you can the far infrared. It's kind of like far infrared, you just feel very radiant and like natural and like very giving in it. And mid-infrared would be almost like if you were in that feeling, but then you put like this heated blanket around you, because it's honing in on the soft tissue where your fat's stored, and also where inflammation resides. So it helps with increasing your circulation more so than just using far infrared alone, even though it's, because of that heat, because of the blanket heat that you're getting when you're inside of the mid-infrared. You can't operate the far infrared and the mid-infrared on the same heater. They're two separate heaters. So that's something always really important to remember. If anybody is telling you, okay, you're getting 3 different wavelengths all off one heater, it's not even possible because the wavelengths are completely different. And then near infrared is done normally by LED array, if you're going to be, or laser. So because of the control of the surface temperature, again, when you're looking at near infrared, what it's doing is it's helping with boosting the cell's ability to create energy and repair faster. So it's great for wound healing, boosting of the mitochondria. In addition to that, it's also really good for strengthening your immune system. And that can go along with the far as well, because you're falsifying that fever.
Okay. Now, I would imagine there's a subset of people listening to this who have never heard of any of these things before: far infrared,
Okay.
mid infrared, near infrared. And maybe like all of this sounds very strange, like some weird technology. So is there any place in nature where humans get these types of wavelengths or frequencies naturally?
So in nature, you actually get all of these frequencies naturally. The far infrared is the invisible heat that comes off of the sun's surface. It's just the amount that you're getting that's different. So if the best way to describe it, so say it was like 50 degrees outside and and it was kind of brisk and cold, and then the sun was out and you got in your car and the car was like really warm and felt very compatible in there. That's a good explanation of what far infrared is, when it feels like what it feels like naturally coming off of the sun. Near infrared is also on the sun spectrum. So if you Googled or Wikipedia infrared, you would see that all of these wavelengths come off of the sun spectrum. They fall between like microwave wavelengths, radio wavelengths. They're all different frequencies. So that's another good explanation of how you can't get one and the other at the same time, because you would never be able to put a piece of food in front of your radio and cook it, even though the spectrums are very close to each other. They're just because they're on different frequencies. So this is all natural. It's just honed in on a larger amount.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the main thing I wanted people to hear, was that this is not just some weird technology. This like people are getting this stuff in nature. And I just wanted people to understand that this is actually a natural thing for the human body to be exposed to these wavelengths. And I would go so far as to say a necessary thing for health, like a necessary nutrient for health, that our bodies need these wavelengths to function well. And, the way I teach it is like, if we look at all the research around this, we can see, there's unique benefits of far infrared exposure on the human body. There's unique benefits of mid infrared. There's unique benefits of near infrared, and they have different mechanisms of action, as you hinted at. And these things are meant to occur in nature. And traditional human societies living in more natural ways, spending more time outdoors, get lots of these wavelengths naturally all the time. But the way that modern humans live, indoor lives, disconnected from the sun and the outdoors, we're missing out on this. And
Absolutely.
We're missing out on all of these benefits. So a sauna is to me like such an amazing way of getting all of the benefits of those wavelengths in a very time efficient and powerful way.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think because I'm so surrounded with the science of it, and I've been, researching and looking at it for so long, that I forget that it is, and I've been using it for so long, I forget that fact that it is like what I'm simulating in an hour's worth of time is probably the same amount of heat that somebody would endure in an entire day. So you're not really missing out on that therapy, and you are still sweating the way that you would have, way back when, had you been working outside all day and just running around, and it's a good way to kind of shortcut it. if you are trying to do a bunch of different therapies at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the other things that's a common source of discussion in the sauna industry is all these competing claims around the quality of the materials used, and off gassing, and the quality of the woods used, and are there glues, and are there EMFs and emitted by the infrared heaters, and so on. So let's delve into that a little bit and just talk about, I guess first we can talk about just the wood construction and off-gassing type concerns. So are there differences between brands as far as quality of woods used and particle boards and glues and all that kind of thing?
Absolutely. With anything, if you take a shortcut, the shortcuts are coming from somewhere, whether it be, the heater quality is obviously going to be a shortcut. The type of wood that's being used is also a shortcut, and then also the type of electrical that's being put into it. These are things you have to be aware of when you're looking at infrared saunas, because you don't want to be taking on more toxins, more EMFs when you're inside of there, and then by all means you don't want to be sitting in just a hot box not receiving any therapy at all. So when you're looking at wood option, you can look at the type of wood and really know kind of where that sauna was produced. There is the lowest wood that you can choose is hemlock. And hemlock is a wood that's normally comes from China. It's a very porous wood. It doesn't hold up very well. It's listed on the wood toxicity chart to cause respiratory issues and things like that. Not only that, if it gets wet, it smells kind of like urine. So you're like in this box that you're going to be sweating in, and then if it gets wet, it stinks. So it's a wood you definitely wouldn't want to use. If you can avoid it, avoid it.
Now, are a lot of sauna brands out there using hemlock?
I'm not 100% sure what the ratio is, but there is a lot that use hemlock. That's where you might go to, that's where you're going to find the China manufacturer. So if you go to a Home Depot or like a department store like that, you'll notice that the units all look the same and they're all made out of hemlock, but they might have different brand names. Chances are the manufacturer of those units it is the same sauna. They're just labeled differently. And when you're researching the unit, you want to make sure that if they're using studies, that the studies are specific to the brand you're buying. They're not general studies, because anybody can talk in generals, okay? And generally, saunas have been proven to do this, this, and this, but it's really important that they've measured the amount of far infrared that you're getting to make sure that if they're correlating with the study, does this sauna do it because you're getting the same amount or more? So that's another thing. So I kind of digress off the wood. But the basswood is a non-odorous hypoallergenic option. So that wood was chosen by Dr. Raymond Francis, who is an MIT scientist. And I believe his brand's called Beyond Health. He was the first one. He did a lot of research on wood, and he was one of the thought leaders behind making the units out of basswood, because it's non-odorous. There hasn't been any recorded adverse reaction. So if somebody really has a hypersensitivity wood, it's kind of a no-brainer. Just go with basswood. And then there's cedar option, which cedar is a natural wood. And most people are not allergic to cedar. There's 3% of the population is actually allergic to cedar, but more people are sensitive to the odor of cedar, if anything. It's an antifungal, antimicrobial wood. It's been traditionally used in sauna forever because of the steam with the hot rocks. You do not need the antimicrobial in infrared, because infrared kills bacteria all on its own. So the reason that you would need it in a traditional sauna, it doesn't carry over to an infrared sauna. So there's no reason to get it from cedar, especially if you have a hypersensitivity. I guess the only reason I would recommend cedar is if you're going to put it outdoors. Okay. But other than that, yeah.
Otherwise, you generally recommend basswood.
I always recommend basswood.
Now, I know you guys also do eucalyptus, I believe.
We do.
What are the pros and cons with that?
So the reason we started with the eucalyptus option is because it's a commercial grade wood, and our eucalyptus units are actually made a little bit different. They the floor heater has been omitted. So if you were a commercial owner, or if you were going to put it outside your pool, you don't have to be a commercial owner. But if you're going to put it outside of a pool, or you're going to be going from a cold bath to the sauna, or a hot tub to the sauna, you wouldn't want a floor heater in there just because of the amount of water, and there's electrical that would go along with it. So, and then the eucalyptus option also has a double reinforced floor. So we have an ADA compliant sauna. So if you were somebody that was in a wheelchair and you were looking to get a sauna, you'd still be able to do it, and you wouldn't have the floor heater, so then the floor wouldn't be compromised. But then there's also the crazies out there that love to put their stationary bike inside of the sauna, or work out in there and drop in kettlebells and, you know, what have you. And
guilty as charged. I think you just called me crazy.
I might have. So, if you're thinking about doing those types of things, then I would recommend probably omitting the floor heater as well, just because, I don't know, do you have a floor heater in your unit?
I do, but actually, in order to protect the wood on the base of the sauna, when I put my stationary bike in there,
yeah,
I put like a yoga mat in there.
Okay.
Which like just as a cushion, so the stationary bike, you know, like the hard metal and plastic of that doesn't screw up the wood in there. I just put some cushion in there, which kind of covers up the part of the floor heater where my sweat would drip.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm not pouring sweat into there all the time.
So you could see how the eucalyptus would be kind of a nice option for that reason.
Yeah. But in general, you recommend basswood.
Yes.
Okay. I actually have cedar, which I like. I enjoy the smell, but I didn't know that 3% of the population is allergic to cedar. It would seem that just running the risk of somebody being allergic to the sauna would be problematic, especially, I mean, it's a big thing to get, and then to realize after you get it and assemble it that like, oh wow, I'm allergic to this. That's not very nice.
Yeah.
So basswood sounds like the safest approach.
Yeah. And that's what I have is the basswood. And especially because I've looked at the studies, but then also you always have to think about the environment mine's in the corner of my bedroom. So I didn't want to have to smell cedar while I was sleeping and things like that, because there is an aroma with it.
There is. I actually really enjoy the smell of it, but personally, but I can understand maybe not everyone does. So what about EMFs? And there's a lot of stuff around that I've seen. A lot of different sauna manufacturers claiming, oh, we have the lowest EMF, and you know, we're the only ones that are EMF free and stuff like that. So what's the deal with that? What's the truth as far as EMFs and saunas?
So EMF is interesting because you will hear people say, okay, we're the lowest, or we have none. That's always my favorite, none at all. Something plugged into the wall, no EMF. Which, you know, would be virtually impossible to have absolutely zero. But there's ways that you can go about reducing EMF. And that's what we've done specifically is we've wrapped all of our wiring in steel conduit. And then we also wrap the wiring away from the body anywhere that you'd be sitting. So then you would be furthest from the electrical points. And then we also had a third-party test come out that it's no higher than 0.3 microns. There are other companies that have also created a low EMF option. There is no such thing as the no EMF option, just because if they say they have no EMF, then ask for the study. And then if you read the study, you'll see that there was a little bit of EMF or some EMF in there.
Right. They just took a little liberties with their interpretation of it to instead of being accurate and saying the measurement was so-and-so, they're like, well, it was so low that it's no EMFs. Yeah,
exactly. And that is important because you want to make sure there's a lot of wiring that goes along with making an electrical unit. So having your safety as a number one concern, and being a wellness company. So that's another way to look, okay, is this a wellness company? Do they have studies? Do they have options for my safety? Preventing that EMF is just another point of that.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And so you said that the measurement on Sunlighten saunas for the EMFs was 0.3. Is that correct?
It's actually 0.03.
0.03, and that's in Gauss? So, milligauss?
Milligauss, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what are standards as far as what's considered safe versus unsafe? Can you give an estimate of what maybe some other brands of saunas have measured at?
Yeah. So basically, there is a couple different standards that people will follow. So the U.S. standard is going to be anything under 100 milligauss, exciting enough, which is really high. But the Swedish standard is anything under 3 milligauss.
Okay. So
Yes,
under 3 milligauss is considered safe
is what
by
you
even
can.
the most stringent standards, and yours is 0.03.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And even if you wanted to compare it to things, so sometimes people are like, okay, compare it to other electrical items around my house. You know, when you look at your cell phone, when it's in use, you could be anywhere from 2 to 6 milligauss of EMF. So that's one of the reasons that you want to kind of keep it away. Your computer would be right along the same as well. Oddly enough, like a digital alarm clock is going to be around 65 milligauss of EMF. So that's why you wouldn't want that near your head while you're sleeping. In addition to like your vacuum cleaner, something that's running on a constant would be something that would be higher towards the 65 to 80 milligauss of EMF, or like your hair dryer and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Gotcha.
to have 0.03 is very low
Right.
when you're comparing it to things.
Yeah. And I'll just translate this. I'll go a step further, since
Okay.
I know you have to be very nuanced and specific, and since you're affiliated with a company, I will go a step further and say, if we're talking in the realm of 0.03 milligauss, this is something that's so low that basically forget about it. Don't worry about it. It's non-significant.
And if you are worried about it, if you move it 1 inch away from the heater, at that rate, you wouldn't be receiving any because you would be that far away.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing we should mention about EMFs is that the amount of exposure you're getting, it goes down exponentially as with each inch of distance that you get away from the source of that EMF. So if you get 2, 3 inches, 4 inches away, there's basically 0 detectable EMFs.
Yeah.
So what about, I think we touched briefly on like glues and plastics and potential harmful materials. The reason I want to go back to this is because with my community, a lot of people with chronic fatigue have multiple chemical sensitivities. So is there anything in saunas more broadly that people need to watch out for as far as things they might react to in a sauna?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you want to make sure when you're looking at units that, if there is any glue involved, that it's a water-based glue, it's non-toxic. In most constructions, they are going to contain some form of glue, but there are certifications that are attached to that. So there's a roll certification, which roll certification means that it was a removal of harmful substances. But then there's also air quality tests that have been done as well. So that's one of the things that we did to kind of ease the mind for people that are ultra sensitive, as we had an air quality test done inside of the sauna and then out of the sauna. Because of the emitters of the far infrared, like we mentioned earlier, they kill off the bacteria inside of the sauna. So the air quality actually outside of the sauna was worse than inside of the sauna when we did those tests. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And so are there big differences between the amount of glues used or the type of glues used between different brands?
Yes, there is. So there's oil-based glues that can be used with different brands. That those would be things that would be off-gassing. And then you also want to make sure the way the sauna is treated. You want to make sure it wasn't treated with anything. When you're thinking about how is the wood dried, where has it been stored, those types of things. So we kiln dry our wood for 40 days, and then it's sat outside for an additional 40 days. And then the outside of the sauna is not treated with anything at all. The inside of the sauna, it's a double paned wall. So if you're wondering, like, how does it operate? It's 2 panes, and then there's a gap of air that's between the 2 panes. And then the outer pane, it has a water-based finish on it that is also completely non-toxic. But then the in pane, the one that's going to be heated, doesn't have anything added to it at all. So that's where you need to really make sure that when you're looking at the sauna, you want to make sure that it doesn't have any type of veneer, any type of finish. If you're the type of glue, that's something that you can ask them for. What type of material was it? Can I see the ingredients on it?
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the benefits around sauna use as it relates to core body temperature. So what's the deal with core body temperature, and how does that relate to, say, for example, like infections? If somebody has a chronic infection with Epstein-Barr virus or Lyme disease or something like that, does sauna use have some unique benefits for a person in that scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at using saunas in general, when you're, it's two different types of heating modality. Obviously, you have the traditional hot rock sauna, which is going to offer that convectional heat, heating the air. There's still benefit to that, you know, being in a room with a hot environment, but you're not going to be raising your core temperature the same way that you would in an infrared sauna. So the study that has been done shows a three degree increase within 30 minutes on average. So obviously it depends on the size of the person. But the reason that it raises your core temperature differently than a convectional heat is that it's a penetrating heat, which is allowing your body to absorb it, even though when you're in there, it doesn't feel as warm. It's going to feel more radiant. You're going to be breathing easy the whole time. Your eyes won't be burning like they would be in a traditional sauna, but your core temperature is raising very quickly. And the 30 minutes is going to give you that 3 degrees, creating that hyperthermia. The longer you're in there, the more you're going to raise your core temperature. But the thing that's really interesting about it is that even when you exit the sauna, it takes about the same amount of time for your temperature to decrease. So you are really falsifying a fever. You're allowing your body to raise the core temperature like you would for a low-grade fever, which is going to help fight bacteria, which causes Lyme and different types of viruses. So if you're somebody, especially that has a hard time getting a fever, or you're somebody that never runs a temperature, then definitely you want to get in there. You want to create that falsified fever, which is going to allow you to really heal from the inside out.
Beautiful. And have you heard from people with some of these chronic infections, with Lyme disease or Epstein-Barr, or cytomegalovirus, some of these other infections? Have you heard stories from users of the sauna who have talked about how it's helped them?
Absolutely. I've been with the company now, with the infrared sauna company, for 6 years, and I have gone to multiple Lyme conferences with Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and he owns the Sophia Health Institute as well as the Klinghardt Academy in Germany. And he uses the units to help with raising the total body's core temperature. And he says time and time again, if there's one thing you can do for this disease, is to raise your total body's core temperature. And I even have heard of people with MRSA that have been able to use it for those types of things that you just can't cure it any other way than really falsifying that fever, because there's really no known cure to it. And in addition to, the Epstein-Barr virus would go right along with that. So the more you use it, so that's something that I always like to tell people. It is a therapy. So it's not a silver bullet. It's not one and done. It's something that you have to slowly bring yourself into. Start slow if you're sick, and then work your way up to it. And as you create that environment and your body starts getting used to the heat, you're going to be able to stay in there even longer and longer, and you're just going to feel better and better as you get out. Beautiful.
So let's jump back a bit. We kind of jumped right into some specifics there, but
sure.
So what other benefits? I know we already talked about the body temperature and chronic infection stuff, but what other benefits are saunas associated with, and specifically infrared saunas?
So a couple different benefits that specifically that we've tested on here at Sunlighten. We did a UMKC study that showed the reduction in blood pressure, blood sugars, and cholesterol. That is a really important study because it was done over 6 weeks, and people were using the sauna 3 times a week for 30 minutes. But there's not many things you can do naturally that will help you with reducing your blood pressure that quickly. Mm-hmm. And if you already have low blood pressure, it's not something that you need to be worried about. I always tell people it was like somebody being skinny and saying, okay, well, I don't need to work out because I'm already skinny. It's good to maintain low blood pressure. Mm-hmm. So it will help with also the maintenance of it. In addition to that, there's also been a weight loss reduction study that was done from Dr. Richard Beaver, and that showed over 5 weeks using the sauna regularly. And I won't repeat the regular schedule, but it's going to be pretty much the regular for all the studies, which is the 6 weeks, 30 minutes, 3 times a week. That showed the reduction of the waist 2 inches. So it was a fat reduction study that was done. And that fat reduction study was actually in conjunction with the type 2 diabetes study. So anybody who has diabetes in their family, or they're looking to increase their circulation and looking to heal off of that, the saunas are awesome for it. There also has been an increased range of motion study done. That study showed the increased range of motion once you exit the sauna if you do light stretching for about 15 minutes. There was 2 groups. The group that added the mid-infrared to the heaters increased their range of motion 205% over the other group. And that study was done at Auburn University, and it's a really, really exciting study because people with chronic fatigue often have chronic pain. So if you're in the sauna and you're using it and you feel like, okay, well, I have chronic fatigue, I have a hard time working out. Okay, well, you don't have to work out, but at least stretch, because it will make you feel so much better. You'll sleep better. You'll have a spring in your step in the morning, a little bit different than you did the morning before. And if you're somebody who's never been flexible before, what a great tool to use to increase that. You'll just be like, honey, I'm doing the splits today. No. So, and
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. There's other studies that have been done in conjunction with like the other wavelengths, as well as like the near infrared and far infrared, and I can go on and on if you want me to.
Yeah, well, if there's any other notable study or piece of research on a particular thing that's worth mentioning, by all means. One thing I'll jump in here and interject is there's some research that has come out of, it's associative research, what they call epidemiological or observational research, but they looked at basically a correlation between sauna use and 2 things: cardiovascular events, so heart attack, stroke, things like that, and all-cause mortality, which is dying from any cause. Mm-hmm. And I show these I show these graphs from the research on this study in my program, The Energy Blueprint. And what you see in these charts is absolutely incredible. It's you see this huge drop off in cardiovascular disease, cardiovascular events, and all-cause mortality, risk of dying from any cause. In this research, I think they followed people for 8 or 10 or 12 years or something like that. And they found that it dropped off directly in proportion to how often people used a sauna and how long they stayed in the sauna. And they showed very strong direct correlations between both of those. So basically, the more frequently someone used it and the longer they stayed in, the less likely they would have any chance of cardiovascular event or risk from dying from any cause. And, I show these charts, and I always say, because I like to point this out for people, that if there was a prescription drug that showed data like this, that showed this huge reduction in risk of dying from any cause in direct proportion to how much of this drug you take. If there was a prescription drug that came even close to this, did even half of what a sauna could do in this regard, it would be a huge, just massive blockbuster, the best-selling drug of all time, and would be a drug that's generating billions of dollars in revenue, and would be hailed as a miracle drug by the world over. Everybody would be like, this is incredible, we've discovered this amazing miracle pill, everybody should be on this thing. And the crazy thing is that we actually have that. It's just not in a pill, it's not a drug from a drug company, it's a sauna.
And I can agree, and I think I know what study you're talking about. And every time I see it, I always think, like, of course it does that for your heart and your life, is because you're reducing so much inflammation. And it's hard to explain how the little pain and the little inflammation that you just get used to day to day because I travel quite a bit. So when I'm away from my sauna, I just start to kind of tighten up, and you're just, those little injuries that you've had, if you've, taken your body to the extreme, they start to kind of creep in a little bit, where even, somebody with fatigue, you just have a lot of inflammation, which is so wearing on the heart. Your body and your heart is working on it non-stop.
Mm-hmm.
And getting in the sauna is something that's really giving your body a break. It's giving your body a chance to just not only relax physically and doing it even naturally by increasing circulation and sweating and detoxifying, but then you're also relaxing mentally as well,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're biking like you, but no.
Yeah, for sure. Well, sometimes I'm in there just meditating, and oftentimes I'll do a hard workout on the bike, either, steady state cardio or high intensity interval training. And then afterwards I'll sit and meditate, stay in the sauna.
Yeah, that's the best place to do it, because it's so easy to do, because you're just kind of encapsulated and closed and natural and just breathing easy. And it's awesome to do breathing exercises when you're in there, because your breaths are just very different. I feel like you're breathing in that infrared, those wavelengths, those healing wavelengths when you're in there.
Yeah. And by the way, there's a big difference for people listening. There's a big difference between doing breath work, especially like breath work through the nose in an infrared sauna versus a traditional sauna. So oftentimes the traditional sauna like singes your nose, and you get that really like uncomfortable feeling in your nasal passageways. But in an infrared sauna, you don't get any of that. You don't get that like
burning,
painful burning sensation in the nose, which is nice for doing breath work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One other thing I'd like you to touch on is detoxification. And I know we went briefly into this before, but is there any research around, or actually I know there's research. So I'll just say, can you talk about some of the research related to like sauna use and detoxification?
So, one of the research studies that I mentioned a little bit earlier was the 80-20 study, where it showed the water and the toxins. The other studies that have been done are blood result studies for reduction in heavy metals. And it's heavy metals. Normally the studies are done on mercury, aluminum, and what's the other one?
Lead.
Sorry. Yeah, I had a brain freeze on that. And they're normally done over 6 months, and the reduction is a little bit different depending on people's sizes. But it's normally around half. Wow. So if you're looking at how significant that is and how quickly somebody who has a lot of heavy metals in their body, if you're looking to get rid of it. So that's also a very important part. If you have a lot of heavy metals, then you definitely want to start slow, because you're reducing a lot very quickly. So that's something to really remember. If you get out and you feel more fatigued than you did when you went in, then back off a little bit, reduce the temperature a little bit, reduce the amount of time that you were in there by 15 minutes, and then kind of just start slow. And even if you try to step it up and you kind of have that result again, like you kind of relapse where you don't feel good when you get out, then you kind of almost want to start all the way back over and detox a little bit slower, because it will come. You will feel better, but you don't want to feel terrible while you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And a couple things I'll add to that. One is there's actually some research that has indicated that certain toxins are really only excreted via sweat and not some of the other detoxification pathways of the body, they're much much efficiently gotten rid of through other detoxification pathways. So sweating seems to be really necessary to help eliminate at least certain toxins based on the research. And I've seen some research specifically around BPA indicating that, that it's just, we get rid of it much more efficiently by sweating more than anything else. So that's interesting. And then one other thing related to that is, I just want to add that, just to mention that sweating is one of the major detoxification pathways of the body. And in the modern world, kind of like we talked about earlier, we're now no longer living an outdoor lifestyle. Well, one of the other things that's happening in kind of the way that we modern humans live is most people don't sweat anymore. I mean, literally like go weeks or months without sweating, like at all. Yeah. And I just want to ram home the point that sweating is one of the major detoxification pathways of the body. And if you don't sweat regularly, it's a guarantee that you're accumulating toxins over time. And the best way to detox, we often think of detox as like, oh, I went on this 10-day detox. I did this, substance, this supplement that's supposed to be good for detoxing. The best way to detox is to keep your body free of toxins by detoxing, doing various detoxification practices on a daily basis or near daily basis. So you're stimulating these detoxification pathways pretty much all the time, rather than like not doing anything and then all of a sudden, oh, I went on a 10-day detox. No, do it all the time. And like sweating in particular is so important to keep the body free of toxins. So just to extend that, what you're talking about with the heavy metals in that 6-month study. Well, imagine if they kept going and if they just had sauna use as part of, their daily practice, or they did it, whatever, 3 or 5 times a week or something like that. They're doing it all the time. Eventually you're going to get to a point where your body's almost free of these toxins. And then if you keep using it, you're going to stay free of the toxins.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you'll hear all the time I hear all the time, I guess I should say, because I'm the one hearing about it, about people who, for instance, smoke cigarettes like years and years ago, and they had given it up. Like, I haven't smoked a cigarette in 5 years. And interesting enough, I was sitting in the sauna, and I swear I could smell almost like that cigarette smoke coming off of me once they're in there for, once they start working up a good sweat. And I hear it all the time, where people will notice these little toxins that they know that they've taken a long time ago kind of coming out that way. Or even when we were talking about doing breathing exercises and things, I've had one woman, for instance, she had inhaled bleach when she was going to open up like a canister of chlorine for the pool. And she had like this pulling cotton feeling at the bottom of her lungs because she kind of had scar tissue from inhaling that. And she was doing breathing exercises within the sauna, and it was a year before. And she's like, I swear I had this breath and I just smelled chlorine.
Wow.
Like that was stuck way down. And she's like, I just, with these exercises and things like that. And she's like, and that pulling cotton feeling when I would take it, ultimately the deepest depth breath possible, started to go away, and I started to heal that way. So toxins get stuck. You got to get them out. Yeah.
Very cool. So what's as far as recommendations on frequency and duration of sauna use? Do you have any recommendations for how long and how frequently people should be using them?
Well, I'm a crazy sauna user, so you can do whatever you want. But I recommend minimum 3 times a week, minimum, if you're going to do it. And the maximum would be once a day. And I typically will sauna anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, just because I want to keep my total body's core temperature raised. I know that it's going to raise the 3 to 4 degrees. And then if I'm in there for an hour, then it will continue to stay raised for another 2 hours. And if you're going to be doing stretching and you want to continue to sweat and really just fight off that bacteria, that's, for me, the best way to do it. That's a little bit more excessive than typically people will do. But I know based on all of our studies, to see results, you have to do it 3 times a week, 30 minutes. But It's safe to do all the time. I guess that's the point I like to make, that it's okay. Once you're used to it, it's safe to do it more often than that and stay in there longer.
Okay, cool. So what about your models as at Sunlighten? What models of saunas you sell? And just I'll interject real quick that I personally have a Sunlighten sauna, and the reason that I have one is for no other reason than the fact that I spent many, many months researching the quality of different saunas and the quality of the emitters and the EMFs and all these other issues that we talked about just now, and talking to a lot of, other health experts in the field as far as what their experience with different sauna brands were and what they found was what they felt were the highest quality brands. And over and over and over again, everything was pointing to Sunlighten. So I ended up personally purchasing one. And I will also mention that my choice of sauna had to do partly with the fact that I've put a spin bike inside of mine. So I had to get a type of sauna that actually allowed for that. and had removable benches. So I ended up getting a far infrared sauna signature for a 4-person sauna from you guys. But so I believe Sunlighten's the highest quality brand out there. That's why I bought one. But I would love if you could just talk about some of the different options that you guys have for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really have an option for everyone. Basically our whole vision is no one left behind. We want to make sure that we can make something for everyone, whether you're a Sunlighten customer or not. We want to still would invite you to come to our website, look at our information that we have for detoxification, look at our sauna protocol. But we really wanted to create a unit that would fit anybody in any lifestyle. So the first unit that I'll tell you about is we have a portable solo unit, which is the best way to describe it is it's a wooden cabin, even though it's portable, and it looks almost like a sleeping bag, but it's a dome that telescopes up over the body. So you can slide it up to your neck, and then it has 4 additional far infrared heaters that line the pad. And then it also comes with light therapy as well for helping for meditation purposes. So the light therapy in the Solo is different than near infrared. I'll mention that right away because a lot of times when people see it, they get the two confused. So it's a far infrared unit, and you can just lie it on the floor, plug it into any outlet. If you live in an apartment or wherever, you're able to take it with you. So you're still getting that total body core temperature. You're getting that detoxifying sweat. It comes with a basically like a fitted mattress sheet that's made of a carbonized bamboo material. That carbonized bamboo material is antifungal, antimicrobial, and naturally deodorizing. And then bamboo is what makes it really durable and captures all that sweat. Because that's a common question. People are like, oh, am I laying in my sweat? No, it's really absorbing. And then you can just throw it in you can hand wash it or throw it in your laundry like you normally do. But you want to just, use something that's completely toxic free when you're using it, because you don't want to be in that heated environment with the Solo pad. And then we have the wooden cabin. So we have a far infrared signature line that ranges from 1-seaters all the way up to 4-seater, like what you have. And all of our units come in the basswood option. The Solo, I should mention, the individual lie-down portable unit does not have any glue at all, not even water-based glue. So if somebody is like, okay, well, I want one that doesn't even have water-based glue, you still have an option to have one that omits that as well.
Nice.
Yeah. And then the wooden cabins range from 1-seater all the way up to 4. And the 4-seater is very large. You're able to work out in there. All of our benches are removable, so you can utilize the floor space if you want to. They're removable, but it's a little bit of a job to remove them. So it's not something you're going to do every day. So you'll probably get your sauna functioning the way that you want it and leave it that way, but you can always put the benches back. And then we have our 3-in-1 system, which is our Impulse sauna line. So the Impulse sauna line has near infrared, mid infrared, and far infrared. And then the units range from a 1-seater all the way up to a 6-seater. So the only thing that makes in each sauna line is the heating technology. All of the features, the functions, all of that is exactly the same. So the signature sauna lines are far infrared line. The Impulse sauna lines are 3-in-1 system. With the 3-in-1 subsystem, you're able to turn on or off any of the wavelengths, and you can operate them all at the same time because they're on different heating panels. So you're able to get near, mid, and far all at one time if you want to.
Nice.
And you're also able to go in there and you can increase or decrease the wavelength to cause your body to react differently. So that's something that's really cool. A lot of people like that. So, and what I mean by that, so say if you wanted to do a cardio workout inside of your sauna, but sitting. So you are somebody who hasn't done a cardio workout in a while, you want to simulate a cardio workout heart rate while you're sitting. So you can go in there, you can do a cardio program, which will heat and cool the sauna, allow your heart rates to increase and decrease during 45-minute session. That way you're able to burn more calories. So in that program, you're going to burn an upwards towards 600 calories, all while sitting. Yeah, so it's pretty intense. And then there's a pain relief program that offers a very strong bandwidth of the mid-infrared, which is going to help with decreasing inflammation more so. And the reason that you want to do that is just because the studies are based on 56 different clinical studies. So by manipulating those heaters, you're causing a different reaction within the body. So to have all of them on all the time, there's a benefit to it, but there's also benefit in manipulating, working, tweaking, so you're not plateauing within your health goals, if you will. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll just interject that I personally am a huge advocate of red and near infrared light therapies.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the the downsides of that is that I often hear from people is like, oh, well, you're talking about a sauna and you're talking about near infrared light therapy. I mean, these devices are expensive. Well, one of the cool things, and by the way, they're not only expensive but time consuming, but one of the cool things about what you're talking about is you guys have actually incorporated near infrared and far infrared and actually mid infrared into the same unit, so you can get all of these things at the same time during the same session. So it's hugely time efficient, and it's just a beautiful piece of technology that you guys have incorporated into that. And I think there's also you mentioned a little bit about the program settings, but these are programmed settings done by clinicians for specific purposes. Is that right?
That's right. So there are 6 programs that are done in there. Well, actually 7, because 7 would be the custom where you're able to manipulate the heaters and do your own programs. But the other programs are anti-aging, cardio, relaxation, pain relief, detoxification, and I feel like I'm forgetting one. Oh, well, you'll see it on our website if you go.
Well, that's enough. Anti-aging, detoxification, pain relief.
Yes.
I forget the other one. I think I only got 3 there. I think you got 5 out of 6. I got 3 out of 6.
And then, well, and one of the other things I do like to always mention is that to have 3 wavelengths inside of our sauna, we have a U.S. patent on it. So we were being the first unit that had near, mid, and far infrared in the sauna. We were able to obtain a patent on it through the engineering firm that we hired to help us with designing our wavelengths. And then also we hired a different engineering firm to do the testing on the absorption of the wavelengths. So because we were able to prove there's actually 3 different heaters, 3 different emitters, 3 different wavelengths, 3 different frequencies, we were able to obtain a U.S. patent on that. So if you hear anybody say that in the U.S., that they have a full spectrum or they offer the wavelengths, then I would definitely ask them for the studies because we have a patent on it.
Cool. Good to know. So do you have any preferences as far as like specific recommendations of which sauna that you think would be best option? So I do, because I've been here for 6 years, I've purchased 2 saunas since I've been here. So based on my own personal experience, I bought a 1-person when I started way back when, and started my whole detoxification process. I was like, okay, I'm going to get one right away. I purchased a 1-person. It's small. It's smaller. So if you feel as if you're ever going to want to have, if you need the bench space to put your feet up, if you feel like you are going to need that for relaxation, don't be like me, only buy 1 sauna. Go a little bit bigger, because nobody's ever complained that they've had too much room inside of their sauna. But at that time, like a lot of people, I was renting. So the 1-person was the only option I could do because I didn't want to have to upgrade my electrical. When you go bigger, you have to upgrade your electrical to be a dedicated higher power. So that's something to always think about as well. So if you're somebody who's kind of a nomad and likes to move around, then maybe the 1-person is the best option for you. But if you're thinking, it's going to be a forever unit, then going with something that's a little bit bigger allows you to encompass more things while you're in there. So think about that. I like to do not only the stretches, but I do different types of, like, I won't even get into it, fat burning things and things like that. So yeah, I can also, I mean, not only did I want to put a spin bike in mine, so that was a space consideration for me, but I also really wanted one that I can lay down in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not have to be in a seated position. So that was a huge factor for me as well in getting a bigger one.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to have a bigger one, but it's always just something like, I always tell people, like, put yourself in there, close your eyes, imagine what you're feeling like when you're inside of the sauna, what's going to make you happy, because ultimately, the more comfortable you are, the more often you're going to use it. And you know yourself that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I've also heard great things about the Solo unit. I've had a lot of
Yes.
members of my program who bought the Solo unit, and I've actually heard tons of people raving about that. And I know that's the cheapest option and the most portable and space efficient option.
Number one seller is the Solo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. People purchase that one all the time. Well, a couple of reasons. That's people love the Solo for a couple different reasons, really. When the proximity of the heaters to your body is 0 to none. So you're in there, when you think about just being in a sleeping bag, basically with heaters is what it would be like. You're on top of those heaters. They're so close to your body. You're able to heat up quickly. There's no warm up time for the Solo. Also, you're horizontal, which is going to help with facilitating even better circulation. So you sweat like mad in there, really, because
that's what I was thinking is, because I was talking about getting kind of moving towards some of the bigger saunas, as laying down is one consideration, needing that space. And yet actually the cheapest option, the Solo, you're in a laying down position. So that's kind of cool that you don't need to, in order to get in that position in a sauna, you don't necessarily need to go all out and spend the most, the cheapest option allows it to.
Yeah. And it's the most comfortable option, because you're laying there and you can put a sleep mask on and listen to, whole tones music or do whatever, and just really embrace the whole heating experience that way.
Beautiful. So one of the other things that we talked about is discount for my audience. Can you talk just a bit about what you guys are able to offer for listeners to this who are interested in getting a sauna from you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were able to work a very significant discount, because one of the things that we're allowing you to do is use it in conjunction. If we are running a promotion or a sale, you can use the Energy Blueprint Ari Whitten discount. Either way, they should be able to put that code in for you. It's $100 off any Signature or Solo unit. So even the portable, cheaper option, you can still take the $100 off, and then $150 off of any of the Impulse unit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure my listeners do as well. Also, one final thing is, if people are interested in getting a hold of you or your team and asking some questions and figuring out which is the best option for them. I know we covered a lot here, and hopefully this was pretty comprehensive, but if somebody wants to reach out and ask some questions, how can people connect with you guys?
So you can connect with us two different ways. One, you can go to our website, and there is a link that allows you to fill out your information, and then somebody will reach back out to you and you'll receive pricing that way. And then the other way is just to call in. So our website is sunlighten.com. So it's sunlighten.com. And then our phone number is 877-292-0020. And again, it's 877-292-0020. And you just push option 5 and you'll get anybody on the floor.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Andrea. And on a final note, I just want to re-emphasize for everyone listening that these wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation, talking about far infrared, mid infrared, near infrared, as I mentioned earlier, these are necessary nutrients for the body to function well. And if you're not living an outdoor life, you're spending a lot of time outdoors, getting a lot of sun on your body, I really can't emphasize more strongly that this stuff really is, it's not just like optional, like a nice bonus, like this is a necessary nutrient for your body to function well. And there's a huge body of evidence showing that it has effects on weight loss. It has huge effects on detoxification, has effects on anti-aging, has effects on pain relief and increasing energy levels and helping people to decrease fatigue. And, as I mentioned earlier, has huge effects on decreasing risk of heart disease and even all-cause mortality, your risk of dying from any cause. So just want to reemphasize for people that this is really, truly a powerful medicine. So I strongly encourage you guys to reach out to Sunlighten and get, find which option is the best for you and really start using this technology, because the benefits are massive. So Andrea, thank you so much again. It's really been a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Ari, so much. And if anybody sees me chiming in on the Blueprint page, my name is Andrea Duffy, so I'll do that when I can.
Awesome. Yeah, I always appreciate you commenting there. So thanks again so much.
Thank you.